and gentlemen, we are here today to reflect on a critical reality that often goes unnoticed: demons in our families and friendships. Now, when I speak of demons, I'm not talking about mythical creatures or spiritual entities that lurk in the shadows. I am speaking of the negative forces that wreak havoc in our relationships: unforgiveness, resentment, bitterness, lies, manipulation, pride, and fear. These are the demons that over time can erode trust, create division, and leave us stranded in isolation, even when surrounded by loved ones. It's important to understand that demons come in many forms. They don't always present themselves as grand, obvious threats. Sometimes they show up as small, seemingly harmless behaviors or thoughts: a harsh word, a misunderstood action, a small betrayal, or an unresolved conflict. These things, if left unchecked, slowly build walls between us and the people we hold dear. And the result? Families that become fractured, friendships that dissolve, and hearts that grow cold. But here's the most powerful truth: before we can change anything in our relationships, we must first recognize the demons within ourselves. We must look within and ask, what am I bringing into these relationships? What unresolved hurts am I carrying? What habits or attitudes are keeping me from healing and moving forward? This self-reflection is not easy. It demands honesty, vulnerability, and courage. But it is the beginning of breaking the chains that hold us hostage to the past. The second step is the power of love and forgiveness. There is no demon, no hurt, no betrayal that love cannot heal. When we choose to forgive, we take away the power of that hurt to control us. When we choose to love, we create an environment of healing, compassion, and grace. It's love that transforms demons into opportunities for growth. It's love that rebuilds trust and brings back unity. And forgiveness sets us free. Not the person who wronged us, but ourselves. It allows us to move forward without the weight of bitterness holding us back. But love and forgiveness are not enough if we are passive in our approach. We must take responsibility for the changes we want to see in our relationships. We cannot wait for others to change first. We must change ourselves. Change begins with our mindset. Change begins with our actions. It begins when we choose to let go of pride and extend the hand of peace. It begins when we decide that the demons we've been harboring no longer have a place in our hearts. Let us not wait for the perfect moment or for others to change before we do. Let us become the change we wish to see. Let us take responsibility for the energy we bring into every room, every conversation, and every interaction. Because we cannot change others, but we can change ourselves. And in doing so, we create the space for transformation to happen. Let us remember that there is power in breaking the chains that bind us. The demons that have kept us in bondage for so long, whether they are patterns of behavior, toxic cycles, or hidden fears, are not permanent. We have the power to free ourselves, and by doing so, free our families and friends. When we confront the demons within, we not only transform ourselves, but we also bring healing to those around us. So today I challenge you: look within, confront the demons that reside in your heart, heal your wounds, embrace love, and choose forgiveness. Break the chains, not for anyone else, but for yourself and for the future of the relationships you cherish. Let us be the generation that refuses to let demons dominate our lives, our families, and our friendships. Let us be the generation that rises up, conquers the darkness, and steps into the light of love, peace, and true connection. Demons are often thought of as external, otherworldly entities, beings that exist to terrorize or disrupt. But the reality is far more subtle and insidious. The demons we face in our lives aren't always the stuff of myth and legend. They are the emotional, psychological, and relational forces that quietly infiltrate our hearts, minds, and environments. These demons take on the form of negative thought patterns, unresolved anger, unhealed wounds, toxic behaviors, and destructive habits. They may manifest as feelings of worthlessness, fear, pride, or even envy. They lurk in the way we speak to each other, in the way we treat ourselves, and in the silent judgments we pass on the people we love most. These demons don't just appear out of nowhere. They are often born from pain that has been left unaddressed or misunderstood. They're the echoes of past trauma, the residues of failures we have never forgiven ourselves for, and the anger that festers when we feel betrayed. Sometimes they begin with a single thought or action that grows over time, expanding into something far more dangerous and consuming than we ever anticipated. Like any invasive force, they start small, but if left unchecked, they can spread through every corner of our lives, making even the most loving family feel like a battleground, and the closest friendships seem distant. What makes these demons so powerful is their ability to take root in the places where we are most vulnerable. They thrive in our weaknesses, in our insecurities, and in the unresolved conflicts that we avoid addressing. It's easy to see the effects these demons have on us: broken relationships, misunderstandings, unresolved arguments, and a constant sense of dissatisfaction or unrest. But what's harder to recognize is that many times we are the ones allowing these demons to hold sway in our lives. We invite them in by refusing to deal with our pain, by holding on to grudges, by letting our fear, pride, and bitterness control us. We build walls to protect ourselves from the hurt, but those very walls also keep out the love, understanding, and healing that we desperately need. When we truly begin to understand these demons, we realize that their influence goes far beyond the immediate impact on our relationships. They also shape our sense of self. How can we truly connect with others if we are constantly battling the internal demons of self-doubt, shame, or guilt? How can we build strong, meaningful relationships when we are hiding parts of ourselves out of fear of rejection? The demons in our lives don't just affect how we relate to others. They affect how we relate to ourselves. They trap us in cycles of negative thinking, preventing us from seeing our worth, our potential, and our capacity for growth and change. But the good news is this: understanding these demons is the first step to breaking free from them. We have to face them head on with courage and self-awareness. We must be willing to look into our hearts and confront the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that have held us back for so long. This is not an easy task, but it is necessary if we ever hope to experience the kind of love, peace, and connection we were meant to have with others. Only by understanding the demons we face can we begin the process of healing, growth, and transformation. It is only when we acknowledge their presence and their impact on our lives that we can start to break their hold on us and reclaim the joy, freedom, and peace that belong to us. It all starts with awareness. We must recognize the demons in our lives for what they are: nothing more than obstacles to our full potential, both as individuals and as part of a greater community. Once we see them, we can take the necessary steps to remove them, to change the patterns, and to heal the wounds that keep us from living freely. We may not be able to eliminate all the demons overnight, but with awareness, persistence, and the right support, we can transform their influence from one of destruction to one of growth and empowerment. The impact of these unseen demons on our families and friendships can be profound and far-reaching. What begins as an internal struggle, something we may think we can handle on our own, often spills over into the relationships we hold closest. The way we interact with those we love, the way we communicate, or even how we perceive them can be dramatically altered by the negative forces within us. What we fail to understand is that these demons do not just remain within us. They affect how we show up for the people we care about, how we engage with them, and ultimately how we can either build or destroy the very foundation of those relationships. In a family, these demons can tear apart the connection that once felt unshakable. A small disagreement that goes unresolved, a buried resentment that isn't addressed, or a hurt that is ignored can fester and grow. Over time, what once seemed like a minor issue becomes a deep wound, creating distance between family members. The emotional space that once held love, understanding, and mutual respect starts to fill with distrust, bitterness, and defensiveness. What we fail to realize is that over time, these unresolved issues become the demons that sit between us and the people we love, building walls of isolation even within the confines of a home. A parent's unresolved anger can turn into harsh words or emotional withdrawal, damaging the relationship with their child. A sibling's jealousy can lead to feelings of competition or neglect. A spouse's insecurity can create misunderstandings and emotional disconnect. These demons may be invisible, but their effects are anything but. They are in the silence after a disagreement, in the coldness of a glance, in the lack of support when it's needed most. When it comes to friendships, the impact is no less significant. Demons like jealousy, pride, and insecurity can creep in, poisoning what was once a healthy bond. The demons of comparison or bitterness can make us doubt the intentions of our friends, causing us to misinterpret actions or words that were never meant to hurt. A small misunderstanding that is left unchecked can evolve into a rift. And the fear of vulnerability can prevent us from reaching out when we need help the most. As these demons take hold, we may start to withdraw, avoiding deeper conversations, distancing ourselves emotionally, and even pushing people away. What we don't realize is that in the process, we can lose the very friendships that once brought us joy, comfort, and understanding. The effects of these demons go beyond just creating tension in our relationships. They can shift the dynamics completely. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. The damage caused by our own unresolved issues can leave scars that take years to heal, if they heal at all. We may begin to see each other not as allies, but as adversaries. The love that once existed may be replaced by resentment, fear, or frustration. And while we may still care for one another, the relationship can feel distant, strained, and weighed down by unspoken pain. Even when we think we've hidden our demons well, they show up in subtle ways. Like the way we shut down when someone tries to get close, the way we avoid tough conversations, or the way we react defensively instead of listening. Those around us, particularly our families and friends, can sense the distance. They can feel when something is off, even if no one is saying anything. And while they may try to understand or offer support, if we don't acknowledge the demons within ourselves, if we don't take responsibility for our role in the disconnect, it becomes harder for them to know how to help or how to get close. In a sense, our demons create a barrier between us and the people who matter most. What's even more painful is when we realize that the people we love, the very people who would go to great lengths to help us, become the very ones we push away. In a family, it's easy to take for granted the love and support that's always there. But as demons grow and manifest in our own hearts, we stop seeing them clearly. We may lash out at the ones we trust the most. Not because we truly want to hurt them, but because we are projecting our own pain and fear. Friendships can face the same fate as long-standing misunderstandings or deep-seated insecurities are allowed to fester. The emotional baggage we carry from past hurts begins to cloud our judgment and our ability to be present with others. And before we know it, the bond that once brought us together begins to fray. What we must understand is that these demons do not have to control our relationships. While their effects are real and can be damaging, there is hope for healing, reconciliation, and renewal. The first step is to acknowledge that they exist and to be honest about how they are affecting us. Once we recognize the impact these forces are having on our lives, we can begin to shift our focus back to the people we love. We can choose to break free from the patterns that keep us trapped in negativity. We can work to rebuild trust, seek forgiveness, and start fresh in our connections. Healing begins when we take responsibility for our actions and seek to restore the harmony and love that relationships are meant to foster. Family and friends are meant to be our support system, our safe haven in a world full of challenges. But in order for them to be that, we must be willing to confront the demons within us that threaten the unity we share with them. Healing these relationships requires us to face the darkness, embrace vulnerability, and step forward in love. It may not be easy, and it will take time, but the reward, stronger, more authentic bonds, will be worth every step taken toward healing. Self-reflection is one of the most powerful tools we possess in the journey of personal growth and transformation. It is the quiet, often uncomfortable practice of turning inward and truly examining our thoughts, actions, and emotions. At its core, self-reflection forces us to confront the parts of ourselves that we may prefer to ignore. The parts that are messy, unresolved, or uncomfortable. But it is through this very process that we begin to understand the root causes of our behavior and the patterns that have shaped the way we engage with the world, especially with those we love. In the chaos of our busy lives, it's easy to lose sight of the internal forces that drive us. We become so focused on external circumstances, what's happening around us, what others are doing, and how we can manage everything, that we forget to pause and look inward. But without this self-awareness, we are at risk of repeating the same mistakes, of allowing unresolved emotions or negative patterns to dictate how we respond to others. Self-reflection is not just about identifying what we're doing wrong. It's about understanding why we do what we do, what drives us, and what motivates our reactions. When we reflect on our behavior, it's essential to go beyond just the surface level of our actions. It's easy to say, I was angry or I was frustrated, but the deeper question is why? Why did that comment trigger such an intense reaction in me? Why did I feel the need to withdraw, to shut down, or to lash out? Self-reflection invites us to dive beneath the surface of our immediate responses and examine the deeper emotional triggers that fuel them. It pushes us to confront the insecurities, the fears, and the past wounds that are still influencing how we relate to others. This process of digging deeper is what allows us to uncover the hidden demons, whether they are lingering resentments, unhealed traumas, or unmet needs that often shape the way we show up in our relationships. This level of introspection is not always easy or comfortable. In fact, it can be incredibly painful to confront the parts of ourselves that we'd rather not acknowledge. But true growth happens in those uncomfortable spaces. When we choose to look honestly at our flaws, our mistakes, and our weaknesses, we begin to understand them more clearly. We stop seeing them as insurmountable obstacles and instead view them as opportunities for healing and transformation. Through this process, we come to realize that it is not our demons that define us, but how we choose to face them, learn from them, and ultimately overcome them. Self-reflection also helps us develop greater empathy and understanding for those around us. When we take the time to look inward, we are better equipped to understand the struggles and emotions of others. Often the challenges we face in our relationships are a reflection of what we're dealing with internally. If we're harboring resentment or insecurity, for example, it can be difficult to trust or communicate openly with others. Internally other people. And internally other people within our thoughts of emotions. By reflecting on our own emotions and reactions, we begin to see that the issues we encounter in our relationships are often more about our internal struggles than about what the other person has done. This realization fosters greater compassion and a willingness to be patient with both ourselves and others as we navigate the complexities of life. When we make self-reflection a regular practice, it becomes easier to spot negative patterns or unhealthy behaviors before they escalate. Instead of waiting until a problem reaches a breaking point, we are able to identify small shifts in our attitude or behavior that may be contributing to conflict or distance. This proactive approach allows us to course correct before the damage is done, making it easier to maintain harmony and understanding in our relationships. In addition, self-reflection empowers us to take responsibility for our actions. It can be so easy to blame others or external circumstances for the challenges we face. But the reality is that much of what we experience in our relationships is a direct result of how we show up, how we communicate, and how we engage with the people around us. By reflecting on our own role in situations, we stop playing the victim and start taking ownership of our part in the dynamics of our lives. This sense of responsibility is crucial for growth. It shifts the focus from external forces to internal empowerment. When we realize that we have the ability to change and shape our responses, we begin to take charge of our emotional and relational well-being. Self-reflection helps us reconnect with our true selves. In a world that constantly demands our attention and approval, it's easy to lose touch with who we really are and what we truly need. Self-reflection is a way to strip away the distractions and reconnect with our core values, desires, and emotions. It reminds us that we are not defined by our mistakes, by our past, or by the opinions of others. We are defined by our capacity to learn, to grow, and to change. Through self-reflection, we gain the clarity and strength to live authentically and show up more fully in our relationships. Self-reflection is not a one-time event, but a continuous journey. It is an ongoing commitment to growth, self-awareness, and personal evolution. As we develop this habit, we become more equipped to face life's challenges with resilience and wisdom. We begin to understand ourselves and others more deeply, and we create space for healthier, more meaningful connections. The power of self-reflection lies not in perfection, but in progress. The progress we make as we continue to learn from our experiences and evolve into the best versions of ourselves. Love and forgiveness are not just abstract concepts or lofty ideals. They are transformative forces capable of healing deep wounds, restoring broken relationships, and shifting the very foundation of our lives. These two forces are, in many ways, the antidote to the demons that plague us. When we speak of love, we're not talking about a fleeting emotion or surface level affection. We're talking about a deep, unconditional commitment to the well-being of others, a choice to extend grace and kindness even when it feels undeserved. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is the conscious decision to release the hold that past hurts and offenses have on our hearts. It's about letting go of the emotional chains that bind us to resentment and anger so we can move forward unburdened and free. At the heart of every successful relationship, whether within a family, among friends, or in romantic partnerships, lies love. Love is the glue that holds people together when things get tough. It is the force that allows us to see beyond each other's flaws and shortcomings and recognize the inherent worth in one another. Love isn't about perfection. It's about acceptance, compassion, and understanding. It's in the moments when we choose to show up for others, even when it's inconvenient. It's in the willingness to listen without judgment, to offer support without expectation, and to give of ourselves without reservation. Love creates space for vulnerability, where we are free to be our true selves without fear of rejection or criticism. And in the safety of that space, we are able to grow, heal, and evolve. But love, no matter how strong, will inevitably face challenges. There will be moments of conflict, misunderstanding, and hurt. We are human, and as such, we will fail each other. But it is in those moments that the power of forgiveness becomes evident. Forgiveness is not simply about letting someone off the hook for their wrongs. It is about releasing the power of the hurt or betrayal over our hearts. When we hold on to grudges or refuse to forgive, we allow the past to continue influencing our present. We become chained to the very thing that caused us pain. Forgiveness, however, is the key to freedom. It doesn't mean that what was done to us was right, nor does it necessarily mean that the relationship will return to its previous state. What forgiveness offers us is the opportunity to heal, to move forward, and to reclaim the peace that was lost. For many of us, forgiveness is difficult, especially when the hurt runs deep. It's hard to forgive someone who has betrayed our trust, taken advantage of our love, or caused us significant pain. But holding on to that pain only prolongs our suffering. Forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves. It is an act of liberation where we choose to no longer allow the wrongdoer's actions to hold power over our emotional well-being. It is in forgiving that we free ourselves from the grip of anger, bitterness, and resentment. We no longer allow those negative emotions to dictate how we think, how we feel, or how we relate to others. Forgiveness gives us the ability to move forward without the emotional baggage that weighs us down. But forgiveness isn't always immediate, and it's not always easy. It takes time, effort, and often a great deal of self-reflection. We must be willing to sit with our pain, acknowledge our hurt, and give ourselves permission to heal. In doing so, we allow ourselves to process our emotions and find a way to release the hold that those emotions have on us. And when we choose to forgive, we open the door for reconciliation, not just with others, but with ourselves. We stop seeing ourselves as victims of the past and begin to reclaim our power. It is through forgiveness that we can start to rebuild trust and reestablish the connection that was once broken. Love and forgiveness are also essential because they allow us to break free from destructive cycles that perpetuate conflict and division. In any relationship, misunderstandings and disagreements will arise. But without love and forgiveness, these conflicts can spiral out of control, leaving emotional scars that take years to heal. Love allows us to approach each other with empathy, seeking to understand before seeking to be understood. It creates a culture of openness and communication where we are able to discuss our feelings, share our perspectives, and find common ground. And forgiveness ensures that when we inevitably hurt each other, we don't allow that hurt to destroy the bond we've worked so hard to build. It creates the space for repair, for rebuilding what was broken, and for moving forward with a renewed sense of understanding and respect. Love and forgiveness are not just important for our relationships with others, they are essential in our relationship with ourselves. We often hold ourselves to unrealistic standards and punish ourselves for our mistakes. But just as we are called to forgive others, we must also learn to forgive ourselves. Self-forgiveness is a powerful act of self-love. It is the recognition that we are not defined by our failures, that our mistakes do not make us unworthy of love or happiness. When we forgive ourselves, we release the shame and guilt that prevent us from moving forward and create space for growth and healing. We acknowledge our imperfections, but choose to embrace them as part of our journey, not as a sentence to remain stuck in the past. Of the day, love and forgiveness are the forces that restore, rebuild, and rejuvenate. They give us the strength to move past our pain, the resilience to face future challenges, and the courage to continue building relationships based on understanding, compassion, and mutual respect. They are the foundation upon which healthy, thriving relationships are built. Without love, relationships become transactional, shallow, and disconnected. Without forgiveness, they become bogged down by resentment, anger, and unhealed wounds. But with love and forgiveness, relationships are given the opportunity to grow deeper, stronger, and more meaningful, bringing us closer not only to those around us, but also to the very best version. Taking responsibility for change is one of the most empowering and transformative actions we can take in our lives. It is the recognition that while we may not always be able to control the circumstances or the behaviors of others, we always have control over how we respond. It is an acknowledgement that we are not helpless in the face of challenges, but rather we have the power to shape our own actions, choices, and ultimately our outcomes. Change doesn't happen by accident. It requires deliberate effort, accountability, and the courage to take ownership of our role in the situations we find ourselves in. The first step in taking responsibility for change is to shift our mindset from one of blame and victimhood to one of empowerment and ownership. It's easy to fall into the trap of blaming others for the difficulties we face. We might blame our family, our friends, our co-workers, or even our circumstances for the conflicts we experience, the mistakes we make, or the unhappiness we feel. While it's true that external factors can influence our lives, it's important to recognize that we are not defined by these factors. Our responses to them, how we choose to engage, how we choose to think, and how we choose to behave are where our true power lies. When we blame others or the world around us, we give up our power. We surrender the ability to change and grow because we are waiting for someone or something else to change first. But when we take responsibility for our own actions and attitudes, we reclaim that power. We take back the control over how we navigate challenges, how we build relationships, and how we create the life we desire. Taking responsibility for change also means confronting the uncomfortable truth that at times we are the ones who have contributed to the issues in our lives. It's easy to point fingers and see others as the cause of our pain or frustration, but true growth comes when we acknowledge our own role in the dynamics we face. This doesn't mean taking on unnecessary guilt or feeling responsible for things that were beyond our control. Rather, it's about recognizing the areas where we have room to grow, where we've made mistakes, and where our own choices, behaviors, or patterns have contributed to the outcomes we're experiencing. It's about understanding that no matter how difficult the circumstances, we always have the ability to choose how we respond. And that response will ultimately shape the trajectory of our lives. Part of taking responsibility for change is being willing to make the difficult but necessary decisions to alter our behavior. It's one thing to acknowledge that we want to change, but it's another thing entirely to take the steps required to make that change a reality. Whether it's letting go of negative habits, learning to communicate better, or setting healthier boundaries, change requires intentional action. It requires us to step out of our comfort zones, challenge old patterns, and take risks. Sometimes it means admitting that we don't have all the answers and we need help or guidance. This humility and willingness to learn are key components of taking responsibility. We are not islands. And part of taking responsibility for change is recognizing when we need support, whether through self-education, seeking advice, or reaching out to others for help. The process of change also demands patience and persistence. It's easy to become discouraged when change doesn't happen overnight. We may slip up or fall back into old patterns. And in those moments, it can be tempting to give up altogether. But taking responsibility means showing up for ourselves, even when the path forward seems difficult. It means committing to the process, understanding that change is rarely linear, and giving ourselves grace when we don't get it right every time. We must learn to view setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow. Change is a journey, not a destination. And taking responsibility for that journey means being kind to ourselves as we navigate the bumps along the way. Taking responsibility for change means committing to long-term growth, not just short-term fixes. It's about looking beyond immediate gratification and focusing on the deeper, lasting changes that will ultimately lead to a more fulfilled and meaningful life. We may be tempted to make quick fixes, to seek temporary solutions that ease the discomfort of the present moment. But real change requires us to take a long-term view, to invest in the kind of growth that takes time, effort, and consistency. This long-term commitment means prioritizing our well-being, nurturing our relationships, and creating a foundation for the future that is built on the values and principles that matter most to us. Taking responsibility also extends to our relationships with others. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the people around us need to change for things to improve. While it's true that others have a role to play in the dynamics of any relationship, we must also ask ourselves, what is my part in this? Taking responsibility in relationships means being honest about our own contributions to conflict or misunderstandings, apologizing when necessary, and making a conscious effort to create healthier patterns of communication and behavior. It means recognizing that we cannot control the actions of others, but we can always control how we engage with them and how we respond to challenges. Taking responsibility for change is an act of personal empowerment. It is the decision to stop waiting for the perfect circumstances or the right moment and instead to take ownership of our lives, our actions, and our growth. It is the realization that we have the power to shape our future regardless of where we've been or what has happened in the past. By taking responsibility, we free ourselves from the cycle of passivity and start actively creating the life we want to live, one that is aligned with our values, our goals, and our vision for who we want to become. Change is not always easy, but it is always possible. And it begins the moment we decide to take full responsibility for the journey ahead. So as you're reflecting on the question I asked you, does it matter to you how people perceive you? Breaking the chains of demons in our lives requires an unwavering commitment to transformation and healing. The demons we face are not always the mythical creatures of ancient lore, but rather the emotional, psychological, and spiritual struggles that keep us bound in cycles of pain, fear, and negativity. These demons may manifest as deep-seated insecurities, unresolved trauma, toxic thought patterns, or unhealthy behaviors that prevent us from moving forward. They whisper lies of unworthiness, keep us in a prison of bitterness, and distort our perception of who we are and what we are capable of. The challenge then is not to fight against an external enemy, but to confront the inner forces that hold us captive and to choose freedom over fear. The first step in breaking these chains is recognizing that we are not defined by the demons that haunt us. It's easy to feel as though our flaws, our past mistakes, and our negative thoughts are who we are, but this is a lie. These demons may shape our experiences, but they do not define our identity. Our true essence is not found in the pain we've endured, but in our capacity to rise above it. It's important to remember that we are more than our fears, our regrets, or our wounds. When we start to see ourselves through the lens of possibility rather than limitation, we begin to shift the power dynamics. The demons lose their control because we no longer see ourselves as victims of circumstance, but as active participants in our healing journey. Confronting our demons requires self-awareness and the courage to face the parts of ourselves that we'd rather hide or avoid. Often, we try to suppress the pain, burying it deep within us in an attempt to move on with our lives. But the more we suppress, the stronger these demons become. The unresolved hurts and negative patterns don't disappear. They fester and grow in the darkness. To break free, we must shine a light on these hidden wounds, looking squarely at the ways they have shaped our thinking and behaviors. It can be uncomfortable and even painful to dig into these areas. But it is only through this process of facing our fears, regrets, and insecurities that we can begin to release their hold on us. Acknowledging these demons is not an act of weakness, but a declaration of strength. That we can begin to release their hold on us. Acknowledging these demons is not an act of weakness, but a declaration of strength. It is the first step toward freeing ourselves from their grip. Once we have faced the reality of our demons, we must make a conscious choice to heal. Healing is not an event, but a process. It requires us to be patient with ourselves as we undo years of negative conditioning and break the cycles that have kept us trapped. It might mean seeking support from others, whether through therapy, mentorship, or spiritual guidance. It might involve learning new ways of thinking, practicing self-compassion, and developing healthy habits. Healing is about more than just getting over pain. It's about reclaiming our power, rewriting the story of our lives, and building a future based on self-love, growth, and authenticity. Forgiveness plays a critical role in breaking these chains. One of the most powerful ways to release the grip of the past is through the act of forgiveness. Not just for others, but for ourselves. Holding on to resentment and unforgiveness is like carrying a heavy burden that only weighs us down. It keeps us emotionally and mentally bound to the people or experiences that hurt us, preventing us from moving forward. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing the wrongs done to us, nor does it imply that what happened was acceptable. It simply means that we are choosing to let go of the pain, the anger, and the desire for retribution. It's about freeing ourselves from the emotional chains that keep us stuck in the past. When we forgive, we break the power that past hurts hold over our present and future. We free ourselves to live fully and authentically. Another vital component of breaking the chains of demons is the intentional choice to rewrite our narrative. So often we are shaped by the stories we tell ourselves. Stories of failure, inadequacy, fear, and limitation. These stories can become so ingrained in our thinking that we believe them to be true, even when they are not. To break free, we must start to tell ourselves new stories. We must challenge the lies that these demons tell us and replace them with the truth of who we are. Worthy, capable, strong, and resilient. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect or ignoring the challenges we've faced, but about choosing to focus on our strengths, our growth, and our ability to overcome. Our past may have shaped us, but it does not have to define us. When we rewrite our narrative, we take back the power to create a future that aligns with our true potential. Breaking the chains of demons also means setting boundaries and protecting our peace. Often, the demons in our lives are not just internal struggles, but external influences. People, environments, and situations that feed into our negativity or cause us to regress. It's essential to create healthy boundaries that protect our emotional and mental well-being. This might mean distancing ourselves from toxic relationships, removing ourselves from environments that trigger unhealthy patterns, or simply saying no to things that drain our energy. Setting boundaries is not about shutting people out, but about preserving the space needed for growth, healing, and peace. It's about creating an environment in which we can thrive and where the power of love, forgiveness, and self-respect can flourish. One of the most important aspects of breaking free from these chains is developing resilience. The journey of healing and transformation is not always linear. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when the demons seem to resurface. But resilience is the ability to keep going, even when the road is difficult. It's about understanding that healing is a process, not a destination. Every step we take toward freedom, whether small or large, is a victory. And in those moments when we stumble, resilience allows us to get back up, learn from our mistakes, and continue moving forward. Resilience is the power to rise again, stronger than before, and to remember that each challenge is an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. Breaking the chains of demons is not an easy path, but it is a path that leads to true freedom. It is a journey of reclaiming our power, our peace, and our potential by confronting our fears, healing our wounds, forgiving the past, and setting new boundaries. We can break free from the forces that seek to hold us back. This freedom allows us to step into the fullness of who we are meant to be. A person capable of living with purpose, love, and authenticity. The chains may feel heavy, but we have the strength to break them. And in doing so, we create the space for transformation, joy, and limitless possibility.